Speaking of spirits, they sometimes can be broken at work. Workplace bullying, always a big subject. Something we didn't talk about, I guess, 10 years ago, because that Kiwi mentality, just harden up, do your job, don't put up with rubbish. We've really started to delve a bit deeper into it over the past 10 years, haven't we?
We have. It's an important thing to focus on, particularly in a world where emotional intelligence plays, as important, if not more important role than just sort of being smart around the technical stuff. And so you got to, particularly in what we call the war for talent in companies where people have choices and options, you got to really focus on whether or not there are people in the company or organization who may be intentionally driving other people away.
Okay, so how do you define workplace bullying?
Well, the technical definition, Mike, is it's a repeated inappropriate behavior. So there typically is a pattern. Each one of us is entitled to a bad day where we may get grumpy with someone, but this is a person who is in a bit of a pattern. So repeated inappropriate behavior. It can be direct or indirect. Certainly that sense of passive aggressive where somebody else is sort of doing your dirty work, but you're the one that's behind it. It can be verbal, physical, or otherwise, and can be conducted by one or more people. So a team may decide that they want someone off the team. And so there may be that, what you would call, it would be behavior that undermines the individual's right to dignity at work.
There you go. Okay, So what does it look like when it's happening?
Well, it could be purposefully undermining someone where you're doing it directly, but even more, it's even worse when it's subversive, when you're like showing a cool face to the person, but behind their back really undermining them. Manipulating a person's reputation. Mm-hmm. There's the idea of socially excluding people. Sometimes we put our workmates in timeout. Where we just pretend they aren't there, and that's a sense of, diminishing a person's worth. Intimidation, aggressive, obscene language, where it really, really is intense. Jokes that are really offensive, whether that be on the basis of gender or race or religion, those types of things. Just stuff that falls into the category of low EQ.
And it can happen in a period of a week, or it can, for some places, systematically be building without you even knowing that it's happening.
That's right. That's even because one of the things you want to be mindful of is that if that persists, if bullying persists and actually becomes a part of the way people get promoted, promoted, it becomes a part of the culture. And if it's been going on persistently for a while, the leadership needs to get under it, really deep under it, to eradicate it, because people aren't going to stay.
No, and you don't want that culture within your workplace, do you?
And just around your social brand and, brand and reputation. Again, when people are searching for the right roles and the right opportunities in 2019, how walking into an organization and wanting to be respected in the first instance is a priority.
So, I understand how it affects people personally, but what impact does it have on the business?
Well, it does have. It has an impact on brand and reputation. And not only does that impact on the employees who may come to work for you, but also customers. Customers pay attention to things like that. Consumers do. And we don't gravitate towards brands that sometimes perpetuate that type of behavior. But it also has impact, Mike, on profitability and productivity, that both of those go down. 48% of people who are bullied intentionally decrease their work effort. Wow. They become disengaged. 38% intentionally decrease the quality of their work. They just aren't as attentive. They're more in a protective zone. 63% lost work time avoiding the offender, so where they just stop showing up. 78% said that their commitment to the organization declined, so they become retention risk, as I mentioned. And 25% admitted taking their frustration out on customers. Right. This is from a Harvard Business Review article on the impact of bullying. So it's real. It has real impact, and it's something that, certainly in the long run will work against the success of a business.
Can you single them out? Can you spot somebody? Like, is there, I guess, a personality trait?
There is. Well, it typically starts early. Like I said, most of us have bad days, and so there'll be a grumpy side to us that some people may find a bit rough or offensive. However, bullying typically stems back to the pattern in childhood. So it's
Wow, okay.
I'm not sure if you know this, Mike, but there's a heavy preponderance for school bullying in New Zealand, reported as the second highest in the developed world, right behind Latvia.
Wow, why are we like that?
Well, I think when we started the conversation, it's just sort of that sense of just suck it up. Don't complain about stuff, just take it. Particularly, in terms of not having people react like they are weak.
That's
or
quite
something like
fascinating
that.
to think that it, can rear its ugly head at such an early stage.
Yeah. Now, there's an interesting thing in terms of the profile of bullies, Mike. They are sometimes very sociably personable. So there's a veneer of confidence that sits over this dark side of them. So very often they are confident. They are the first to they're
Right.
more of the dominant force in the team. Their personality is just wired around wanting to have their way. And very often they're good at what they do until they get into that zone of bullying.
Okay, so if you're a manager of a bully, how do you approach the person to deal with the problems, to try and stamp it out? If you in your workplace can see it and you're a manager, how do you do it?
I would just say, follow your gut around that. If you see it happening, then hold the person who has acted as a bully accountable for it. Bring them in, have a conversation. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound. Worth a pound of cure, certainly. You also want to catch and correct things in the moment. So if you see it happening, just interrupt it. Just come in with another, hey, got to go over here for a meeting,
Right.
need you right away, that type of thing.
So in the moment,
In the
yes.
moment, that often helps around self-awareness, to have a conversation with the person as close to the event as possible.
Right, yep.
And then you have the person really think about their leadership style and their management style, and how they really want to keep people engaged and connected. It would pay to just be a bit more aware around when their confidence all of a sudden surges into the zone of intimidation.
Yeah.
I often say that, particularly for managers and leaders, we often forget how our rank amplifies when we are angry. And so you almost have to work harder when you are frustrated to make sure that that's not misinterpreted, or that you go over the edge in that respect.
Okay, what if you are being bullied? What if you're the one being bullied? What are your options?
I think you stop it right in the moment. There's a sense of hierarchy in some companies where you would never say something like, "Hey, please don't talk to me that way." That some people would be hesitant to say that to their manager. I believe that that's a basic request around a person's sense of respect. And that, at a bare minimum, when I come through the door wanting to make a difference every day, I at least, appreciate being respected. And part of that is, don't talk to me that way. Or let's try to get this conversation to a place where it can be productive. So be the person who
nice.
tries to sort of lift it up to a better place. And then finally, let's just take a break.
Okay.
We've gotten to a rough place in this conversation. How about we just take a break and meet up again in an hour, maybe down in the cafe over a coffee?
Brilliant advice. And speaking of taking a break, I think we'll do just that. Harold Hillman, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. We'll catch you again next week.
Great, Mike. Thank you.